I personally think events are very important for increasing the density of partnerships between businesses and community members. And I'm really excited to see, 50 events around the world. I've really gone to, since COVID, all of the, Cardano meetups that are large, like the Wyoming one and the one we had in Consensus in Miami and now Rare Bloom. So I'm really looking forward to flying out to Europe for the first time and getting to meet, some European Cardano community members. Really, really excited for it. I wanted to take a little bit of a jump back. We were talking about incentives earlier, and you mentioned that the transaction fees only cover 1% of the stake pool operators' return. So to give people some foundation for that, the way that Cardano was designed, instead of having a halvening event like Bitcoin, every 4 to 6 years the rewards get cut in half, but it happens slowly over time. When we first started, I want to say the rewards were about 5.5% on average if you're a delegate in the Cardano ecosystem. Right now, we're looking at about 3.8 to 4.2, depending on that luck there. And what's supposed to account for that is transaction fees. As Cardano grows and the transactions increase, and once we have Hydra and we have scaling, and Cardano is a world financial operating system, the transaction fees ought to cover the rewards from the reserves going down over time. And what he just mentioned there is that only 1% of those fees are being paid currently by transaction fees. So, with that, I clearly see, the incentive problem there. Hey, we only have 1% covering right now. And, 4 to 6 years, we're going to be at, maybe 1.8% or 2%. So with that, how are you guys looking at incentivizing stake pool operators and delegates in the future?
So the way we look at it is that there's a couple of really cool sites out there who's done some dashboards in the community. And I specifically love one from Matus and his team, who basically has a very nice rainbow chart. I think currently today, I was looking at it, around 48% of all transactions done on the Cardano blockchain in the last epoch actually were let's say non-value transactions. And what I mean about a non-value transaction is a transaction where you either use metadata, you use native assets, you use a Pluto smart contract, or in any other way actually use the blockchain as it was supposed to be done. So where in the first phases of the Cardano ecosystem, we needed liquidity. We needed the access of a fiat ADA rail. Now what we need very, very much and urgently is that when these business models grow and people really start looking at enterprises on Cardano, we need to ensure that some of these exchanges or regulated custodians or even banks, as we have on board now, and as you probably know, the Cardano Foundation support the integration of banks, exchanges, and custodians and wallet providers. And we have about 355 of those we support at the moment in the last hard form. We need to get to the next step, and the next step is that they can deploy these ADA on the actual blockchain. And step one is called single stake pool operators, so that they're not just having their own stake pool, and then we have some kind of centralization because a specific exchange is very big and they want to ensure they have everything under control. So ensuring that we can get to a single stake pool operators is very important. And we worked very close to a Swiss bank called Signum. So they're actually the first regulated bank who actually have the ability to do single stake pool operators delegation through direct deposits with a fully regulated bank. And there's a couple of others on the way there. And the second thing is voting. I think if you learned anything around blockchain governance, it's about participation. And even though Catalyst is amazing, there's still a very low participation. The lower participation you have, more is the higher the likelihood is you get some odd events that a project is voted in which probably shouldn't have been voted in, and the research is not done, and there could be some things. But a blockchain like Cardano is really built on participation. So therefore, the next thing is we really want to do is to ensure participation, so the voting. And then the big elephant is where I started the conversation. I think the ADA utility token is amazing. And yes, it can be used like Bitcoin is used today. 1-to-1, one-to-many, many-to-one. And I think there were some good examples after the Vasil hard fork with the Typhoon wallet, where somebody sent hundreds of transactions out to pay some loyalty, and they paid less than 4 ADA for it. So you really see how EUTXO scales now. My point about that is that you need to go from these simple value transactions where people are sending ADA from A to B to actually start merging identity into it, to start merging NFTs into the transaction. Because this is one of the value propositions from the Cardano blockchain, which is so big, which other blockchains has not chosen to embrace in their architecture. So what I think is that the Cardano Foundation has one of the main milestones and KPIs we're looking at is how do we promote not all transactions, because we need more transactions and we need a bigger ratio of transactions who either uses smart contracts, Plutos, Marlowe, metadata, and so on. So that's one of the places we are using a lot of brain power. We are spinning up marketing resources. We are starting to do product-based marketing. There's going to be specific, let's say, seminars and speeches at the Cardano Summit who's going to approach some of those subjects. And, we're going to try and promote cases like the MOU we just did with the country of Georgia, because what the country of Georgia actually is doing is they're using the blockchain more than just the native utility of ADA. And we think that the more people who kind of sees that there is there's not just a value added, but the total cost of ownership for operating a solution like that goes down based on good education, quality documentation, having the ability to contact the Cardano Foundation's integration team and speak to them about best practices. All of that is going to a direction where hopefully we can move that timeline that we can get, economic sustainability while still having, very good and, as little as possible in transaction fees. I mean, the worst that can happen is that we end up in a situation where we are seeing a split community because some of the community wants the transaction fees to go up because on the short term that might give you an increase to the reserves, and the rest is saying, yeah, but if it goes up too much, we get into a situation where the total cost of ownership for operating a long-term solution on Cardano doesn't fit. And I think that's this bias we have with these features on the Cardano blockchain, which is so interesting. And it's really a joy that we have this functionality about these protocol parameters to think about.
We spoke a lot about incentive there, and in the past few years, a lot of single stake pool operators and multi-pool operators have brought up issues with certain parameters that incentivize decentralization moving forward. The first one is A naught, Cardano's pledge incentive parameter, and also the K parameter, which is the optimal number of stake pools in the Cardano ecosystem. Do you feel that moving forward that it's the Cardano Foundation's role to try to find the answers and come to the community with some potential answers to this incentive problem? Because for the past couple years it seemed as if IOG was going to do that, but it keeps getting pushed back for Vasil or for Alonzo or for Mary, and it does seem very important to have a proper foundation for incentive because there is a point of no return with that. So do you feel that that's the Cardano Foundation's role moving forward with incentive?
I feel that the Cardano Foundation should point to these facts. We need to educate the community, and in the community there's already a lot of subject matter experts who's coming up, who is doing some economic modeling and doing different things. But we need to ensure that people understand that we actually do have a choice. There is a way to do these things. And currently on the protocol parameters, we don't have a process or procedure of how you actually request a change and how we validate that. So the only way of doing it today is to misuse or to use the SIPS process to do that. But when we did this community ecosystem developer survey, we actually saw that there was a double-digit amount of people who never heard about the SIPS process. So we certainly think that it's the Cardano Foundation's job to educate and to point attention to that we have this flexibility in that. But I also think that it is Cardano Foundation's job, if we see that the incentives gets out of order, if I may say it like that, that we raise our hand and we point to that. But it also is important that people understand that this has never been done before.
Yeah,
never had a situation. Yeah, and it's all interdependent, right? So you cannot please everybody, but I think the education about protocol parameters, the education about long-term versus short-term economic incentives, the education about what you just said before, which is, so important to say also, is that Cardano's staking is not locked. You go to other blockchains, the staking is locked, right? There is a slashing methodology in it, and there's other things. And what that really shows is that the architecture of Cardano is not only at the same level or superior, right? Because we haven't seen any attacks on it, and what we've seen has been able to be handled. But the fact that it's not locked gives you more freedom to basically already put your vote in there. And that's why I said before, it's so important that you can vote with wherever you have your ADA. And voting today can either be a voting catalyst, but it can also be which stake pool are you actually delegating to. So I think this means more than what people realizes. So there's a huge difference whether you're with a centralized exchange who doesn't allow you to vote, or whether you actually move to an exchange or move to a wallet, a non-custodial wallet, where you can actually show your trust. Because this helps with the security, plus it helps with the stake pool operators who goes beyond every single day to do content like you're doing, or to do tools and systems to support the Cardano protocol. So I think there's not only a security parameter, but it actually also is about placing your bet and voting on the people you think is the right people to build and lead the ecosystem going forward.
Yeah,